Volker has focused a great deal on making sure that the depository institutions, commercial banks, do not engage in proprietary trading, that they're not too big to fail.
Yeah, that they don't have hedge funds or private equity firms.
Exactly. I've also been concerned that you can have too big to fail institutions that are not deposit-taking institutions, investment banks. That once you separate the two, you can still have a very
he
big
seems
problem.
to be arguing to me and others that that there's no such thing as too big to fail if, in fact, you're not a depository institution.
Yeah, and that's where I think we differ.
Okay, that's one place you differ.
And so, for instance, we wound up bailing out AIG, and we bailed out.
Should we have bailed out AIG, or should we? What was the alternative?
The alternative was to say, let it go, and if some parts of our...
What does let it go mean?
Got to go bankrupt.
Okay. Right.
And if some parts of our financial institutions have problem, need money, like Goldman Sachs, then give them money, not give them money, lend them money in a way that will get back compensation.
In the same way they did with Citigroup? I mean, in terms you lend them money for a piece of the equity, or just lend them money?
One of my criticisms is that when you give them money, you get back appropriate compensation. Yeah. So the form would have been such as something like Warren Buffett. When he gave money to Goldman Sachs, he got back warrants and preferred shares.
And a 10% return.
And a very high return. And so we should have done just as well as Warren Buffett. Why can't we negotiate terms? That was an arm's length deal, not affected by
So in other
politics.
words, the United States government should have had Warren Buffett negotiating the deals it made with commercial institutions, with financial institutions that were in trouble.
That's right. And other countries have done a better job in providing money to their banks and getting back value than the United States. So that's what we should have done there. Another area of that we need to do something about is do more in breaking up the too big to fail banks. I think the notion that these too big to fail banks can be trusted in any way seems to me, the one thing economists agree on is that incentives matter, and if you have an incentive to engage in excessive risk-taking, you will. And the question there is whether the failure of this institution engaging in financial activities would send significant ripples through the economy that anybody could say to us, if you don't save that institution, it will have sufficient consequences through the financial system. There are other set of issues with General Motors, with jobs.
And how do you measure that?
Well, that's not an easy question, but there are models that can look at what happens if you pull out one institution out of the financial web. One of the big advances in recent years in research, particularly at the Bank of England, have been to look at these networks of financial interdependence. Some of my own research has actually focused on exactly that kind of question.
I think the governor of the Bank of England, Mervyn King, is that his name?
Yes.
Is in favor of breaking up the banks.
Yeah, he says, and I agree, if you're too big to fail, you're too big to be.
And you buy that.
And I buy that.
Universal banks is not by definition a bad idea, is it?
I think what you have to look at, in the context of the American economy, are the cost versus the benefits.
Right.
There are some benefits, but what we've seen are the costs far outweigh those benefits. The important point to remember is the services that they provide won't disappear. They will be provided, but organized differently.
And more efficiently?
And I think more efficiently. Right. And the point is, right now, we can't, the big banks are effectively subsidized, and they have a competitive advantage not based on greater efficiency, but the fact is that because everybody knows they're too big to fail, they can get capital at a lower interest rate, and that gives them a big advantage over every smaller institution.